And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is Barnon 11970. I apologize from before. For some reason, my audio is disabled. I don't know why, but please let me know as soon as you can if you can actually hear my voice. Otherwise, it's going to be a very boring video. And I want to talk about a topic that's been discussed a lot recently. And, okay, people can hear me. Great. And I want to try and teach people that this can mean a lot more than just a video game. So I want to make sure that people understand that how you can actually use this situation as a way to take care of governments, corporations. You know, I'm going to make it simple. So please bear in mind, because a lot of people use emotion. And when it comes to law, contracts, when it comes to business, they don't care about your emotions. They might pretend because they want to save face and they want to save their PR. But in the end, like governments, they'll basically give you what you want. Now, before I get into the bigger parts of this, I want to give a little background on this in case you're not familiar with it. Recently, EA, now they're not the only ones that have done this. This is not the first time. Probably not going to be the last time, depending on the people, the buyers. But the situation is, in this particular game, they were doing what's called loot crates, which are microtransactions. Now, what is that? Basically, what it means is there are two ways to get these loot boxes, where they would randomly maybe upgrade your character or unlock a character that you can't have originally when you purchased the game. Now, the two ways are you can either play for an extended period of time, which they've actually lowered recently, to unlock them, or if you wanted to pay money, you can do it and get these things right away, which would give people an unfair advantage. Basically, people would say it's pay to play, because if you have a lot of money, you would be able to buy all the upgrades you need to have the most powerful characters, so when you're on online gaming, you would have an unfair advantage. Now, like most people in life, when people have a lot of money, they have unfair advantages, which, you know, that's perfectly fine, and that's not what this is about. But this basically was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, because different companies have been doing this for a little while now, but EA has been famous for doing it a lot, and they've gotten to the point where it became where people noticed it. Now, I want to let people know there are people right now that are doing petitions to try and get rid of EA's license from Disney. Now, I agree with those people that a company like that, who is basically using greed, should not have these licenses. But this is what people fail to realize. A contract is a binding document, and anything in the four corners of a document that has been signed by both parties, you are contractually obligated to fulfill what's in that contract, despite what anybody thinks. So I understand where people, and again, they base things on emotion, that they don't think that EA deserves the license, which, again, I agree with. But even if Disney 100% said, you know what, we don't want EA to have that license anymore, they legally have no ground to stand on. Because if they tried to breach the contract that they both signed, EA would sue them and would win. So the petitions, as nice as it is, and as much as it makes people feel that they're a part of something, it's not going to solve anything. So I want people to think a little deeper. Now, there are also now people saying that governments want to come in and start regulating this, because they're starting to view it as online gaming. Because if you know anything about video game consoles these days, you have to, when you first get a video game console, especially if you want to be online, you have to enter in your credit card information. Now, I tell people all the time, stay away from credit cards, but most people use them. That's why it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. But when you have to enter your credit card into whatever system you buy, most people are using the little remote control where you have to kind of flip from one number to the next, and it takes a little while. Now, most people don't want to have to enter that every single time, so they have a save option. And they love that save option because then you're just basically 1 or 2 clicks away from spending money very conveniently, which means children could potentially have access to buying things without your knowledge. And there have been they have records of people spending multiple thousands of dollars on games. So this makes people infuriated, and rightfully so. Now, people, unfortunately, are going about it all wrong. And this is where I want you to think about how you can change governments and their regulations, how you can change corporations and how they treat the consumer. Because I can understand completely why people are angry and upset about this situation. They have every right to be. But here's the thing. The last thing you want is a government to come in and regulate things, because if we know anything about governments, they will take it to the extreme at a certain point, and then they will deem more and more items to be more and more controlled. And if you know anything about what happened with, for example, the Clinton quote-unquote foundation, it only takes a couple of $100,000 to maybe a couple of $1 million in quote-unquote donations to keep a law from passing or have a law be created. So the last thing you want is governments to come in and regulate, because it may seem like a good quick fix at the moment, but I promise you they will take advantage of it to the point where it's very profitable for them in the long run. Now, these petitions, again, I understand why they're doing them, but it's not going to change the contract. You are legally bound by the contract, and the best Disney can do would be to maybe buy them out if EA agrees, or not renew the contract if there is a time limit not introduced in the original contract. Because the only way you can change a signed agreement with a business or a person is if both parties agree to amend the contract. And there is no way that EA would take away their license of Star Wars when they know they're going to make money on it. So you can have people all of a sudden make videos where they get the game and they burn them to show how much they don't like this company's business practice. Now, that may seem like you're doing a good thing. Say, look, I have the game and I'm going to show EA what I think of it by burning it. And you get pleasure out of doing that. But what do they get? They get your money. So instead of making these things so complicated by getting governments involved and trying to sign petitions and getting angry and thumbing down videos, because on Reddit, EA made this ridiculous statement that got the most thumbs down in the history of Reddit, and all it does is gives them free publicity. And if they have your money, what do they care what you do with it? I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a yard sale, and you sell a television for $500. The person gives you the $500, they take it, it's now their property, and they decide that they're going to smash it right there. Do you care? It's not yours anymore. So even if that person said, you know what, I'm going to buy this person's TV, and I'm going to show them how little that TV means to me, and I'm going to smash it right in front of them because they had to sell it because they needed money. So I'm going to show them that I'm so much far superior than the person selling it that I'm just going to smash it right in front of them. What do you care? It's their TV. They can do whatever they want with it. And this is what corporations don't want you to realize, that they don't care if you burn their albums or throw away their T-shirts or stomp their video game systems into dust. If you've already purchased it, they have what they want. And this is why, if you see how they're doing their PR, they're saying the right things, or at least they're trying to. And the governments do the same thing. So how do you fix problems like this? It's an easy solution. You do not buy the game. And that includes the hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTubers who will do reviews. Because if you spend the money on this game and you buy some of the loot crates to show how corrupt it is, and you give it the most negative review on the planet, they still have your money. So yes, a lot of people causing these problems is going to create a damage because their stock lowered approximately about $3 million. But you're talking a multi-billion-dollar corporation. That's like you and I losing a nickel. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal when you have billions of dollars, and they can get loans that we could never get. So even if it got to that point, they would be extended credit that we could never get. That's why they can do things like this. So if you want to solve anything in the world, and this shows that if people unite in a common cause, they can create change, but you want to do it with using your head and not your emotion, is if you do not give them what they ultimately want, and that is your fiat currency, in other words, your cash, your euros, your yens, whatever, your rubles, if you do not feed the beast dies. So as much as people want to hate on something like this, and they have every right to, and it is 100% justified, if you purchase the game, even if to do a negative review, even if to show you're going to throw it into the garbage, you have given them what they want. And like in government, governments give you what you want, because it doesn't matter if you complain. It doesn't matter if it emotionally gets you angry. If you continue to participate in it, their mindset is, well, they might be complaining, but they're still paying us the money. They're still doing the very thing that they complain about, so they must want it. So companies, corporations, governments will give you what you want because people are doing things the wrong way. And they want you to be emotionally involved. They want you to be upset. They want you to think that that will cure your ailments of how bad you feel because, for example, you made fun of EA. But they're still making the money. So think about a business. Say you owned a business and you had a restaurant and you decided you only want to serve water. For some reason, your restaurant only serves water. And you charge $5 a glass. Now, if nobody shows up to your restaurant, one of two things will happen. You'll either go out of business, or you'll change the menu to provide what it is the people want. But if people went to your business, and they would put on Yelp or some other, maybe on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and they'd complain about how expensive the water is and how ridiculous a restaurant that only serves water is. If you keep going there and spending money, that tells the business that you're giving them what they want. So I want people to, what I like to call, understand that if you want to make real change, you have to think about the word change as far as monetarily, money. Money speaks all languages when it comes to governments and business. It's different for us because we're not in the same boat. And that is why they will keep doing these loot boxes. They will keep doing these microtransactions as long as people pay for them. And like anything, most people will just pay for them even if they don't like it just because it's convenient. Because, for example, with EA, you have to spend, or originally it was, you had to spend about 40 hours to get one of these special loot crates, which would randomize a specific upgrade or a change in the character or an unlocking of a character. But if you spend a certain amount of money, you can get it instantly. Well, people with a lot of money will decide, you know what? I'm just going to do that because now I can go online, I can win the game. And believe me, as silly as that may sound, they make millions, if not billions of dollars on these microtransactions, which means there's enough people to warrant them to continue to do it. So it doesn't matter if you complain. It matters if you are willing to sacrifice not buying something you might like on principle. And the same thing with governments, especially in this country, the United States of America Corporation. Law is based on consent. Now, consent does not always necessarily mean that you agree with it. It also means you do not say anything to contest it. In other words, your silence is the same as consent. And I've used this example before. Think about if you are standing somewhere and somebody just starts punching you. Now, if you held up a sign that said how unfair this is, if you complain about how much it hurts, if you get all your friends to protest how unfair it is for this person to keep punching you, are you actually stopping it? No, you are not. So as nice as it makes people feel to sign a petition or to stay out overnight protesting a business, it does nothing but give them advertisement in the long run to make them more profitable. And big companies will risk a temporary decline in, for example, their stock prices for all the free advertisement they'll get, because then what they'll do is their next game, they might say, you know what? We've eliminated the microtransactions. We're going to do more singular player games. We're going to give you everything that you wanted because we care. And the people will forget what happened and spend all the money, and then they'll just slowly bring it back again. And this is what governments do. If you look at how much freedom we had in the 1940s, and then look at the 1950s and go on each decade, how much more of your freedoms have been eliminated. They do things in slow movements, because this whole EA situation is not something new. This has been going on for a while. Now, it normally has been going on with free-to-play games, like, for example, on your cell phone, where you just download a quote-unquote free-to-play app, but unless you spend money, you are not going to win. And I've seen those games before and how addicting it is and how easily it is to spend money, because once you enter your credit card, all you have to do is hit the pay button, and then all of a sudden you're spending money left and right and you don't realize it. So governments love to get people emotional, because emotions have nothing to do with a contract. So the contract between Disney and EA, you may hate it. Disney may even hate it. But there's nothing that could be legally done unless EA somehow has breached the contract or failed to meet a stipulation in the contract. So Disney, the best that they can do is either hope there was a time limit that they put on it. Like, in other words, the contract was only valid for them to have the license for maybe 5 years, or they had to sell a certain amount to be able to automatically renew it. Unless they do not fulfill the obligations of the contract, or there is a time limit, the best that they can do is hope that there is a time limit, or they hope that EA does not follow the contract stipulations. So it doesn't matter what petitions you have. You can have 5 million people sign that petition saying that Disney should revoke the license from EA. And I agree, they shouldn't have it. But it doesn't matter, because law is law, and your feelings and your emotions and your thoughts have nothing to do with contracts. And this is what people need to understand. So if you're a person that's going to review that video game, and you bought the game, well, you're telling EA that you're willing to give them your money, and this is what they want. So I don't want to make this video too long, but I want people to see, if you want to make change in this world, and I'm talking real change, as nice as it feels to protest, as nice as it feels to sign petitions, as nice as it feels to trash whatever government or country or law or regulation that happens, as much as that makes you feel good to do it, it doesn't change anything. That's why there is more and more restrictions going down the line and less of what we really want. So if you want to have these things fixed, you have to think the way they do. They care about your money. If EA does not make any sales, they will either go out of business or they will change. They won't do it because you signed a petition. They won't do it because you made a video trashing their product. And the last thing you want is governments to come in and start regulating things. Because be careful what you wish for, you may get it. And if you know anything about politicians, a couple of $1,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million or two, to quote-unquote donate to their cause, will make or prevent the law from ever seeing the light of day. So think smarter. Think on their level. Don't make it more complicated than it is. You don't like what EA is doing. You don't like what any other government official is doing, any other business is doing. You don't like what the banks are doing. You don't like what the credit card companies are doing, how they're raising interest rates to the point of absurdity. Well, don't use them. It's as simple as that. And sometimes you got to make sacrifices. I love the Star Wars brand. I would have loved this game, but I will not buy it. So will I miss out? Absolutely. It could have been the greatest game in the world, but there's a thing called principle. Are you willing to have the sacrifice it takes to stand up for a cause that you truly believe in? Because if you can't, then what is it that you're really doing? Are you just joining in on a hate group? Because that solves nothing. So hopefully this video helps you. And if you appreciate what I try and teach, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, bring people to this video, because we all know if you're a subscriber to my channel, YouTube does its very best to silence my videos because they don't like truth. They don't like logically thinking people. They want people that just react and use emotion and don't really pay attention to laws and how things can really be changed. So I need your help with that. And if you ever want to join my Patreon account, you can. And I thank each and every one of you for taking part in this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it days, weeks, or months later. It's time to start thinking smart. This Battlefront situation with EA has brought a lot of people together. And that's why if you live in this country, the United States of America Corporation, and if you don't understand what that means, check out my video about the truth of the United States law and you. There's a reason why they say, united we stand and divided we fall. So we have the power. Never forget that. We just have to learn to utilize it in the right way. Being emotionally upset and aggravated has nothing to do with law. Thanks for listening. Have a great night and be safe. I'll see you next video.